Christopher Reynolds thought his 18-year marriage to Mia was unbreakable. But one October night in Breckenridge, Texas, she stormed in, reeking of another man's cologne, and snapped, "I'm not your property." A single conversation shattered his world. 2 DNA tests, stolen savings, and a father-in-law's confession would unravel decades of lies. But his kids would show him what family truly means. The Texas sun was dipping below the horizon, casting long shadows over Christopher Reynolds' ranch in Breckenridge. At 42, he was a man of routine, training German short-haired pointers for hunters across the Southwest. His dogs were his pride, loyal and sharp, always sensing trouble before it arrived. Tonight, his lead dog, Rocket, paced restlessly in the kennel, ears twitching. Christopher noticed but brushed it off until the front door slammed open at 11:47 p.m. Mia stormed in, her purse hitting the floor with a thud. The sharp scent of unfamiliar cologne hit Christopher like a punch. He stood from his chair, hands steady despite the unease creeping up his spine. "Where have you been, Mia?" he asked, voice calm but firm. After 18 years, he knew how to keep things steady with her. "Out," she snapped, grabbing a beer from the fridge and cracking it open. "With friends." Her tone dared him to push further. "Which friends?" Christopher pressed, thinking of their kids, 15-year-old Lucas and 12-year-old Emily, who'd been asking for her all evening. "Lucas said you missed his game. Emily needed you for her science project." Mia's eyes flashed with something new, contempt. "I'm not a child, Chris. I don't need your permission to live my life." The words cut through the quiet house. Rocket whined from the kennel outside, sensing the tension. Mia slammed the beer bottle on the counter, the sound echoing like a gunshot. Christopher stood, his 6-foot frame towering, but his voice low. 18 years, Mia. 2 kids, a business, a life we built. And this is how you talk to me?" His heart pounded, but he held his ground. She froze, hand on the stair railing, then turned with a cold stare. "Maybe I'm done with this life." Without another word, she grabbed her keys and walked out. The roar of her car engine faded into the night, leaving Christopher staring at the empty driveway. He didn't sleep. By 5 a.m., he was on the porch with Rocket, watching the stars fade. The kids would be up soon, expecting breakfast and answers he didn't have. Lucas had football practice at 7, and Emily needed to be at school by 8. Life didn't stop for a broken marriage. As the sun rose, Christopher's phone buzzed, a text from his business partner, Jake, asking him to cover a training session. He typed a quick reply, then headed inside to make coffee. Lucas shuffled into the kitchen, his 15-year-old frame already broader than his dad's. "Where's Mom?" he asked, grabbing a banana. "Her car wasn't here when I got up." Christopher flipped pancakes, buying time. "She left early. Had some things to take care of." It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the truth either. Lucas raised an eyebrow, but didn't push. He was sharp, like his mom, and Christopher knew he'd sensed something was off. Emily bounded in, her science project, a chart on plant growth, tucked under her arm. "Dad, can you help with this?" Mom promised to check it last night, but she never came home. Her voice was light, but her eyes searched his face. "Sure, kiddo," Christopher said, forcing a smile. As Emily spread her papers across the table, he caught Lucas watching him. The boy was too perceptive for his own good. "Eat up, Lucas. You've got practice." After dropping the kids at school, Christopher drove to the bank. A gut feeling, sparked by Mia's defiance, pushed him to check their accounts. What he found made his hands shake. Their joint savings account, holding $50,000 for the kids' college funds, was empty. A single withdrawal, dated yesterday morning, hours before their fight. Mia's name was on the transaction. He called Tom Wilson, his lawyer and friend since high school. "Tom," she cleaned out her savings. 50 grand gone. Tom's voice was grim. "Check everything, Chris. Business accounts, credit cards, anything she could touch. When marriages go south, money's usually the first to disappear." Back at the ranch, Christopher dug through their home office. Bank statements revealed charges at upscale Dallas restaurants he'd never visited. Hotel receipts from business trips Mia had taken alone. A second phone bill for a number he didn't recognize. Each discovery tightened the knot in his chest. Then, tucked behind old tax files, he found a folder with apartment listings in Dallas, dated 3 months back. Mia hadn't just left, she'd been planning it. His phone rang. An unknown number. "Chris Reynolds?" The voice was gruff, familiar. "It's Henry, Mia's dad. We need to talk." Christopher stepped into the garage, away from the kids' rooms. "What's going on, Henry?" "Mia showed up here in Louisiana yesterday," Henry said, anger lacing his words. "She wasn't alone. Some guy named David Russell, real estate hotshot, driving a black Escalade. When I asked who he was, she told me to mind my own business. Said she needed space. I gave her one night, but not with him in my house." Christopher gripped the workbench, his knuckles white. "What did she say about me? About the kids?" "She didn't. Acted like you didn't exist. Chris, I raised her better than this. I don't know what's gotten into her." Henry paused. "She left this morning. Said she'd figure things out." After hanging up, Christopher sat in his truck, staring at the kennels. Rocket and his pack watched him, their eyes steady. 20 years of breeding champion dogs, and he couldn't keep his own family together. But sitting still wasn't his style. He called Tom again. "She's with some guy named David Russell. Her dad saw them together. I need answers." "I'll dig into this David guy," Tom said. "But Chris, brace yourself. This might go deeper than you think." That evening, Lucas came home from practice and found Christopher at the kitchen table, surrounded by bank statements. "Dad, what's all this?" he asked, dropping his gym bag. "Just sorting some stuff out," Christopher said, keeping his voice even. But Lucas wasn't fooled. 2 weeks ago, I saw Mom in the parking lot after my game," Lucas said quietly. "She was with some guy in a black SUV. They were close. When she saw me, she pulled away fast." Christopher's jaw tightened. "What did he look like?" "Tall, fancy suit, slick hair. Like he thought he owned the place." Lucas hesitated. "Dad, is Mom coming back?" "I don't know, son," Christopher said, meeting his son's eyes. "But whatever happens, we're in this together. You, me, and Emily." Lucas nodded, his expression hardening. "I've got your back, Dad." As night fell, Christopher stood by the kennels, Rocket at his side. Mia's betrayal was no longer a suspicion. It was a fact, carved into bank statements and whispered in her father's voice. But the real blow was yet to come, and it would shake the foundation of everything he thought he knew about his family. Christopher Reynolds' world was already crumbling after Mia's betrayal, but the truth cut deeper. In Breckenridge, Texas, he uncovered her secret phone, hotel receipts, and a drained $50,000 savings account. Then his father-in-law dropped a bombshell. Mia wasn't just cheating. She'd been planning a new life with a man from her past. But when Christopher dug into that man's history, he found a secret that threatened to redefine his family forever. Christopher Reynolds leaned against his truck, the Texas dawn painting the Breckenridge sky orange. His ranch was quiet, save for the soft barks of his German short-haired pointers. Rocket, his lead dog, sat at his feet, sensing his unease. 3 days had passed since Mia stormed out, leaving behind a trail of lies and an empty $50,000 savings account. Christopher hadn't heard from her, but the evidence of her betrayal kept piling up. Hotel receipts, a secret phone bill, and apartment listings in Dallas. His lawyer, Tom Wilson, had promised to dig into David Russell, the man Mia's father, Henry, had seen her with in Louisiana. Christopher's gut told him David was more than a fling. Lucas, his 15-year-old son, had confirmed it, recalling Mia's hurried retreat from a man in a black SUV after a football game. The memory gnawed at Christopher as he fed the dogs, their eager yips a stark contrast to the chaos in his mind. At 7 a.m., his phone buzzed. It was Tom. "Chris, I've got something on David Russell. Can you meet me at my office in an hour?" Christopher dropped Lucas and Emily at school, dodging their questions about Mia with vague assurances. Emily, 12, clutched her science project, her eyes searching his for answers he couldn't give. Lucas, quieter than usual, just nodded when Christopher said, "Focus on school. I'll handle things." Tom's office was a small, cluttered space in downtown Breckenridge. The lawyer wasted no time. "David Russell's a real estate developer in Dallas," Tom said, sliding a folder across the desk. 45, married, 2 kids. But here's the kicker. He and Mia went to college together at UT Austin. They dated for 2 years before you met her. Christopher's jaw tightened. "So this isn't new?" "Not by a long shot. I pulled some records. David was working in Austin in 2009, same time Mia was there for those business trips when Lucas was conceived." Tom's voice softened. "Chris, there's a chance Lucas might not be yours biologically. You need to consider a DNA test." The words hit like a sledgehammer. Christopher stared at the folder, his hand steady, but his mind racing. Lucas, his son, the kid he taught to throw a football, who'd helped him train dogs since he could walk, might not share his blood. You sure about the timeline? He asked, voice low. David's employment records check out, Tom said. He was in construction in Austin, 2008 to 2009. Matches when Mia said she got pregnant. Christopher drove back to the ranch in a daze. The kennels were waiting, but he couldn't focus. Instead, he called Henry. Tell me everything you saw when Mia showed up, he said, stepping into the barn for privacy. Henry's voice was heavy. She rolled in with this David guy, acting like they were a couple. He's tall, slick, wore a wedding ring. Introduced himself as a real estate guy. When I pushed Mia about you and the kids, she shut down. Said her marriage was complicated. I told her to leave if she was going to disrespect you like that. Anything else? Christopher pressed. She left a bag behind, Henry said. Found some letters in it, old ones from David to Mia. They go back years, Chris. One's dated 2010, when Emily was a baby. He wrote about seeing his girls. Christopher's blood ran cold. Girls? Plural? I don't know what it means, Henry admitted. But you better find out. That evening, Christopher sat Lucas down in the workshop, away from Emily's ears. The 15-year-old was tinkering with a dog crate, his hands steady like his dad's. Son, I need to talk to you about something serious, Christopher began. No matter what, you're my boy. Always will be. But there's a chance your biological father might be someone else. I'm getting a DNA test to know for sure. Lucas set down his tools, his face unreadable. Then he stood and hugged Christopher, his voice firm. You're my dad. You raised me, showed up for every game, taught me everything. Some tests won't change that. Christopher's throat tightened. You're a good man, Lucas. Better than I was at your age. The next day, they went to a clinic in Abilene. Christopher paid for rush results, knowing the wait would be torture. Meanwhile, Tom called with more news. Mia's been busy, he said. She rented an apartment in Dallas 2 months ago. Pay the deposit with your savings. And Chris, she's filed for custody of Emily. Christopher nearly dropped the phone. On what grounds? She's claiming you're unstable, drinking heavily, turning the kids against her. It's a dirty move, but we can fight it. Henry's willing to testify about her behavior in Louisiana. And if those DNA results come back like I think, we've got a case for fraud. 3 days later, the DNA results arrived. Christopher sat in his truck, the envelope unopened. Rocket whined beside him, nudging his hand. He tore it open. The words blurred. Lucas was not his biological son. David Russell's shadow loomed larger, a man who'd been in Mia's life longer than Christopher realized. He called Lucas to the porch that night. It's true, son, he said, handing him the results. I'm not your biological father. Lucas shrugged, his eyes steady. Doesn't matter, Dad. You're stuck with me. He grinned, and for the first time in days, Christopher laughed. But the victory was short-lived. Henry called again, his voice urgent. Chris, I went through more of Mia's stuff. Found another letter from David, dated 2012. He talks about Emily like she's his. You need to test her, too. Christopher's heart sank. Emily, his little girl, who'd clung to him through this mess. Could she also be part of Mia's deception? He ordered another DNA test, his resolve hardening. Mia had stolen more than money. She'd built their family on lies. As he trained the dogs that afternoon, Lucas joined him, tossing a dummy for Rocket to retrieve. Dad, whatever happens with Emily, we're a team, right? He asked. Always, Christopher said, clapping his son's shoulder. But inside, he braced for the next blow. Mia's secrets were unraveling, and each one threatened to tear apart the family he'd fought to protect. The custody battle loomed, and with it, the truth about Emily's paternity. Christopher knew one thing. He wouldn't let Mia destroy what he and his kids had built, no matter what the tests revealed. Christopher Reynolds' life was unraveling in Breckenridge, Texas. Mia's betrayal, stealing $50,000 and hiding the truth about Lucas' paternity, cut deep. Now, a second DNA test loomed over Emily, his 12-year-old daughter. As Mia fought for custody, claiming Christopher was unfit, he uncovered letters proving her decade-long affair. With his father-in-law's testimony and Emily's loyalty, the courtroom would decide their family's fate. Christopher Reynolds stood in the training yard of his Breckenridge ranch, watching Rocket chase a dummy across the field. The German short-haired pointer's focus was unshakable, a stark contrast to the chaos consuming Christopher's life. It had been a week since the DNA test confirmed Lucas, his 15-year-old son, wasn't his biologically. Now, another test was pending for Emily, his 12-year-old daughter, sparked by letters from David Russell, Mia's lover, hinting she might not be his either. Mia's custody filing for Emily, accusing Christopher of being an unstable father, had turned the knife deeper. His phone buzzed as he tossed another dummy for Rocket. It was Tom Wilson, his lawyer. "Chris, the DNA results for Emily are in," Tom said. "Can you come to my office?" Christopher's stomach churned. "What about the custody hearing?" "Set for next week," Tom replied. "Mia's lawyer is pushing hard, painting her as a reform mom. But we've got Henry's testimony and the financial records showing she stole $50,000. If the DNA test confirms what we suspect, we can nail her for fraud." Christopher drove to Tom's office, the envelope with Emily's results waiting on the desk. He opened it, his hands steady despite the dread. The words hit like a freight train. Emily was not his biological daughter. David Russell's shadow stretched across both his children, a secret Mia had buried for over a decade. "How do I tell her?" Christopher asked, his voice low. "Don't," Tom advised. "Not before the hearing. Let's focus on keeping her with you. The judge needs to see Mia's pattern: lying, stealing, abandoning her family." That evening, Christopher sat with Lucas and Emily at the kitchen table, helping with Emily's science project. She was explaining nitrogen levels in her plant growth chart, her enthusiasm a bright spot in the storm. Lucas caught Christopher's eye, sensing the weight he carried. "Dad, you okay?" he asked quietly. "Just tired, son," Christopher said, ruffling Emily's hair. "Let's get this project done, kiddo." He couldn't tell her yet, not until the court decided her future. Henry, Mia's father, arrived from Louisiana the next day, his pickup kicking up dust in the ranch driveway. At 70, he carried himself with the grit of a man who'd seen hard truths. "Chris, I brought those letters," he said, handing over a stack of envelopes. "David's been writing to Mia since before Emily was born. One from 2012 calls Emily his little girl. I'm testifying against her. She's my daughter, but what she's done to you and the kids is unforgivable." Christopher scanned the letters, each one a dagger. David's words were casual, intimate, as if he and Mia had never stopped their affair. One line burned into his mind. "I'll see my girl soon, Mia. We'll make this right." The audacity of it, planning a new life while Christopher raised his children, fueled his resolve. The custody hearing was held in a small Breckenridge courtroom, the air thick with tension. Mia sat across from Christopher, her lawyer, Barrett, beside her. She'd rented an apartment in town and taken a job at an insurance office, presenting herself as a mother ready to rebuild. Barrett argued her case. "My client made mistakes, but deserves a chance to reconnect with her daughter." Tom stood, his voice steady. "Your Honor, Mia Reynolds didn't just make mistakes. She stole $50,000 from her children's college fund, conducted a 15-year affair, and lied about the paternity of both Lucas and Emily." He presented the DNA results, the financial records, and the letters from David. "She abandoned her family, leaving Mr. Reynolds to raise 2 children alone." Barrett objected. "The paternity issue is irrelevant to Emily's custody." Tom was ready. "It's relevant because it shows a pattern of deceit. Mia defrauded Mr. Reynolds for years, claiming these children as his while knowing otherwise. And yet, he's never wavered in his love for them." Henry took the stand, his testimony unwavering. "I raised Mia to know right from wrong," he said, his voice cracking. "But when she brought her lover to my home, acting like her marriage didn't exist, I knew she'd lost her way. She's no mother to those kids." The courtroom fell silent as Judge Patricia Morrison, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, reviewed the evidence. Then she called Emily to her chambers for a private talk. Christopher's heart pounded as he waited, Lucas gripping his hand. "She's tough, Dad," Lucas whispered. "She'll tell the judge the truth." 20 minutes later, Emily returned, her eyes red but her chin high. She slid into the seat beside Christopher, squeezing his hand. Judge Morrison cleared her throat. After speaking with Emily and reviewing the evidence, it's clear Mrs. Reynolds' actions, financial theft, prolonged deception, and abandonment, make her unsuitable for primary custody. Full custody of Emily Reynolds is awarded to Christopher Reynolds, with supervised visitation for Mrs. Reynolds. Mia's face crumpled, but Christopher felt no satisfaction, only relief. Emily hugged him tight, whispering, "I told the judge I want to stay with you, Daddy." Outside the courthouse, Lucas put his arm around them both. "We're a team, right?" he said, his voice steady. "Always," Christopher replied, his eyes on his kids. The DNA tests had shaken him, but Emily's choice and Lucas' loyalty proved family wasn't about blood. It was about who showed up. As they drove back to the ranch, Rocket barking a welcome from the yard, Christopher knew the fight wasn't over. Mia's lies had cost them dearly, but the truth was forging something stronger. In Breckenridge, Texas, Christopher Reynolds won custody of Emily, proving family is more than DNA. Mia's betrayal, stealing $50,000 and lying about both kids' paternity, left scars, but Christopher and his children stood stronger. As they rebuilt their lives, a new ally brought light to their ranch. But when Mia's final move threatened their peace, Christopher learned that true strength comes from those who choose to stand by you. Christopher Reynolds tossed a training dummy across the field, watching Rocket, his German short-haired pointer, sprint after it with laser focus. The Breckenridge sun beat down, but the ranch felt alive again, a month after the courtroom victory that granted him full custody of Emily. Lucas, 15, and Emily, 12, had faced the truth. Neither was his biological child, yet their bond had only deepened. Mia's lies, her theft of $50,000, and her 15-year affair with David Russell had nearly broken them, but they'd emerged as a family forged in loyalty. Life moved forward, relentless as ever. Lucas was back at football practice, his sights set on a scholarship. Emily's science project earned an A, and she'd joined the school's basketball team, her energy lighting up the court. Christopher threw himself into the ranch, training dogs for hunters across Texas. Word of his stand against Mia spread, bringing new clients who respected a man who fought for his kids. One afternoon, a pickup pulled into the driveway. Laura Bennett, a 40-year-old veterinarian from Abilene, stepped out with her own hunting dog, a Brittany Spaniel named Scout. She'd heard about Christopher's pointers and needed training for a client. "Mr. Reynolds, your reputation precedes you," she said, shaking his hand. Her smile was warm, her manner direct. Scout bounded toward Rocket, and the dogs hit it off, chasing each other through the yard. Laura's visits became regular. She was a widow, raising 2 teenage sons alone, and understood the weight of rebuilding after loss. Over coffee breaks, she and Christopher traded stories, his about the custody fight, hers about starting over after her husband's death. "You're doing right by those kids," she told him one day, watching Lucas help Emily with a basketball drill. "That's what makes a parent." Christopher appreciated her perspective. Laura didn't push, didn't pry, but her presence brought a quiet ease to the ranch. Emily took to her, asking about Scout's training, while Lucas teased his dad about the vet lady. For the first time in months, Christopher felt a spark of hope beyond survival. But Mia wasn't done. Tom Wilson called one evening, his voice tight. "Chris, Mia's filed a motion to revisit custody. She's claiming she's stabilized, new job, apartment, therapy. Says she deserves more access to Emily. And she's asking for the $50,000 theft to be dropped as part of settlement." Christopher gripped the phone, standing in the barn. "She stole from our kids, Tom. Now she want a free pass?" "She's desperate," Tom said. "David Russell cut her off after his wife threatened divorce. We got the upper hand. Henry's testimony, the DNA evidence, Emily's statement to the judge. But we need to counter fast." Christopher met with Henry, who'd moved closer to Breckenridge to support the family. At 70, Mia's father was a rock, his disgust with his daughter's actions unwavering. "I found more in her old stuff," Henry said, handing over a bank statement. "She funneled some of that $50,000 to an account in David's name. It's fraud, plain and simple." Tom filed a counterclaim, demanding Mia repay the stolen money and face fraud charges. The new hearing was set for a month out, but Christopher kept it from Emily, not wanting to disrupt her progress. Lucas, however, overheard the call and confronted him. "She's coming for Emily again?" he asked, his fist clenched. "She's trying," Christopher said, meeting his son's eyes. "But we beat her once. We'll do it again." Lucas nodded, his jaw set. "Emily's staying with us. No way she goes with Mom." The second hearing was quieter than the first, held in the same Breckenridge courtroom. Mia's lawyer argued she'd turned her life around, presenting pay stubs and a therapist's letter. But Tom dismantled her case, presenting the bank statement tying her to David's account. "Mrs. Reynolds didn't reform," Tom said. "She's covering her tracks after a 15-year deception." Judge Morrison's ruling was swift. The motion for increased visitation is denied. Mrs. Reynolds will repay the $50,000 and the fraud case will proceed. Mia left the courtroom without a word, her shoulders slumped. Back at the ranch, Christopher sat the kids down. "It's over," he said. "Emily's staying, and your mom's facing consequences." Emily hugged him, her voice small. "I didn't want to leave, Daddy. This is home." Lucas grinned. "Told you we'd win, Dad." That evening, Laura stopped by with Scout, bringing pizza for the kids. "Heard about the hearing," she said, sitting with Christopher on the porch. "You did good, keeping your family together." "They kept me together," Christopher admitted, watching Lucas and Emily play fetch with the dogs. Laura's hand brushed his, a quiet gesture that said more than words. 6 months later, the ranch was thriving. Lucas earned a football scholarship to Texas Tech, and Emily made the varsity basketball team. Henry became a fixture, teaching the kids to fish and sharing stories of his youth. Laura's sons joined them for barbecues, their laughter filling the house. Christopher and Laura's friendship grew, her steady presence a reminder that trust could be rebuilt. As he trained Rocket one morning, Christopher realized Mia's betrayal hadn't destroyed him. It had cleared the way for something stronger. His kids, his dogs, and the people who chose to stand by him were his real family. The fight wasn't over. Mia's fraud case loomed, but with Lucas and Emily by his side, he was ready for whatever came next. Christopher Reynolds rebuilt his life in Breckenridge, Texas, after Mia's betrayal, stealing $50,000 and lying about their kids' paternity. With custody of Emily secured and Lucas by his side, he found new hope with Laura, a kind veterinarian. But when Mia made one last desperate move, Christopher's family showed him that love, not biology, defines a father. In a final reckoning, he discovered what truly matters. The Breckenridge sun rose over Christopher Reynolds' ranch, casting a warm glow on the kennels where his German short-haired pointers bounded with energy. Rocket, his lead dog, nudged his hand as he tossed a training dummy, a routine that grounded him through the chaos of the past year. Christopher, now 43, had won full custody of Emily, 12, and strengthened his bond with Lucas, 15, despite learning neither was his biological child. Mia's 15-year affair with David Russell and her theft of $50,000 had nearly shattered them, but the family emerged stronger, held together by loyalty. Life had found a new rhythm. Lucas was excelling on the football field, his scholarship to Texas Tech secured. Emily, now a standout on her varsity basketball team, filled the house with her chatter about games and science projects. Henry, Mia's 70-year-old father, had settled nearby, becoming the grandfather the kids deserved. His stories and fishing trips brought a sense of stability. Laura Bennett, the veterinarian who'd become a steady presence, visited often with her Brittany Spaniel, Scout, and her 2 teenage sons, blending seamlessly into their lives. One spring morning, as Christopher trained a new litter of pointers, his phone buzzed with a call from Tom Wilson, his lawyer. "Chris, Mia's out," Tom said. "Served 18 months for fraud, released yesterday. She's asking to see Emily. Sent a letter through her lawyer." Christopher's grip tightened on the training whistle. "What's the play, Tom?" "She's got no legal ground for custody," Tom replied. "The judge's ruling stands, supervised visits only. But you need to talk to Emily. She's old enough to decide if she wants contact." That evening, Christopher sat Emily down in the barn, away from Lucas' ears. "Your mom's out of prison," he said, keeping his voice steady. "She wants to see you. It's your choice, kiddo." Emily fidgeted with her basketball, her eyes on the ground. "She left us, Dad. Stole our money, lied about everything. I don't need her." She looked up, resolute. "You're my family. You, Lucas, Grandpa Henry, even Laura. I'm good here." Christopher hugged her, pride swelling. "Whatever you decide, I've got your back." Lucas overheard, as he often did, and joined them. "She doesn't get to waltz back in," he said, his voice firm. "We're done with her games." At 16, he carried a quiet strength, a testament to the man he was becoming. Mia's letter arrived the next day, a plea for forgiveness filled with excuses, feeling trapped, chasing freedom. Christopher read it once, then set it aside. Emily's decision was final, and he wouldn't push her. But Mia's release stirred old wounds, and he braced for her next move. It came faster than expected. A week later, Tom called again. "Mia's filed a civil suit against you, claiming emotional distress from the custody battle. It's a long shot, but she's trying to pressure you into dropping the fraud restitution order for the $50,000. Christopher laughed bitterly. She steals from our kids, lies for years, and now plays the victim? She's desperate, Tom said. Her job's shaky, and David's gone silent. We'll counter with the evidence from the custody hearing. Her financial fraud, the letters, Henry's testimony. It'll get dismissed. The civil suit hearing was set for a month out, but Christopher kept it from the kids, focusing on their routine. Lucas helped train the dogs, his knack for handling the pointers rivaling Christopher's. Emily spent afternoons with Laura, learning to care for Scout and sharing stories about her games. Laura's sons, Jake and Ethan, joined them for weekend barbecues, their laughter mingling with the dogs' barks. One evening, Laura sat with Christopher on the porch, watching the kids toss a football. "You've built something incredible here," she said, her hand resting on his. "Those kids adore you, and you've given them a home that's real. You've helped," Christopher admitted. "You and your boys brought something back to this place. Laughter, maybe." Laura smiled. "Takes one to know one. We've both rebuilt from nothing." The civil suit hearing was a formality. Mia's lawyer argued she'd suffered under Christopher's relentless pursuit, but Tom presented the same damning evidence: bank records, David's letters, and Henry's testimony. The judge dismissed the case in under an hour, upholding the restitution order. Mia left the courtroom, her last attempt at leverage gone. That summer, Christopher proposed to Laura in the training yard, Rocket and Scout at their feet. The kids cheered, Lucas grinning as Emily tossed confetti made from shredded homework. The wedding was small, held in the Breckenridge courthouse where Christopher had fought for Emily. Lucas, now 16, stood as best man, while Emily, radiant at 13, was Laura's maid of honor. Henry raised a glass at the reception in his backyard. "To Chris, who showed my grandkids what father is. And to Laura, who saw the man he's always been." As Christopher danced with Laura to a slow country tune, he looked at his family. Lucas teaching Jake to throw a spiral, Emily showing Ethan her basketball moves, Henry laughing with neighbors. Mia's betrayal had nearly destroyed him, but had carved a path to this moment. Biology didn't make a family, showing up did. And with Lucas, Emily, Laura, and her boys by his side, Christopher knew he'd found the real thing.